Well, hello everyone, and welcome to round number 4 of the NGK and NTK Esports Cup. It comes at you from the wonderful Hockenheimring this evening. My name is Connery Maddock. I'm joined by Patricia Stalizzane for this particular broadcast as we get ourselves all set for another evening of racing as we go hard charging towards that grand final in a month or so's time. But before we get to that, we still have to secure our drivers for that final event. So Patricia, we are here at the Nürburgring. Of course, it is a stalwart, a consistent feature of any sort of racing in Germany. It's a fantastic circuit, if in my opinion. You do tend to get a lot of overtaking action here, which will be absolutely fantastic to see. I'm not sure if you have any opinions on it, but it certainly ranks quite highly on my list of most fun tracks to watch.
Definitely. So Hockenheim is my home track, I would say. I did my first GT4 podium on this track, so it holds a special place in my heart for sure. I'm looking forward to the race today. I think it's going to be really exciting. And obviously Nürburgring, as you said, is going to be the big finale, so that's going to be great too. But Hockenheim, every season calendar has it on it, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. And, well, we are basically towards midway point of the season now. We do have a couple of other races before we get to that finale. Remember, it's the top 40 drivers in this regular season get themselves qualified for that final race. But we do have races at Rudskogen and Alton Park to get out of the way with first before we actually head to the Nürburgring. So still a lot of things can change here in this initial part of the season before that finale, and I certainly cannot wait to bring the coverage to you for those particular races. But here at Hockenheim, of course, we are actually not using the full Hockenheim circuit. We are using the national circuit, so it's just a little bit shorter. We don't have that full run, that long straight down towards down towards the hairpin that we would usually have here. But so that's going to be a little bit of an interesting thing for the drivers to deal with. Here's the stream schedule that we have on screen. Well, it's already started. You know that. We're doing our welcome right now. We're going to be heading into qualification in just a handful of minutes time here, Patricia, before we get into our 2 races for the day. Both of those races 25 minutes, and well, the grid for race 2 will depend on the results for race 1 as well. But how important is qualifying going to be here, Patricia, for the races going forward?
Well, obviously qualifying is very important in each and every race, but I think this time it's comparatively going to be less important. So I think you can overtake quite well in this track, and I think race pace is going to be very similar. So it's going to be a tight field. So obviously it's going to be good to not start in the mid-pack and get involved into the crashing in the first lap. But anyway, I think there will be a lot of overtaking during the race.
Yeah, I think so too. It's going to be a fantastic track for it. Here's the standings as they are coming into this round, coming out, of course, round 3 at Imola. It's Alexander Tieber who currently leads the way, 231 points. Vince Peters not too far behind, actually, 225 points there at the very tip-top of the order of things. Gal Valero, John Ellen, and Sergei Maturana will round out the top 5 when it comes to that. But you have a look down at the other end of the order, the drivers that are on the bubble, so to speak, in terms of qualifying for that finale. You have the likes of Juno Checo Sornen there, who is that final quote-unquote qualified driver at the moment. Aaron De Battista, Sheldon Muscat, Sophie Anwen. There's, those are the drivers that are at risk at the moment. And of course, you need to be in that top 40 to have any chance of getting into that final race.
Yes, of course. So we still have 3 more races left, so you still have a little bit of time, but each and every race counts because obviously you can lose a lot with the reverse grid. Yeah, so let's just see and keep pushing, obviously, and I hope that we're going to have an interesting race today.
Yeah, I hope so too. And well, drivers are beginning to get themselves into their qualifying session here. Of course, they'll have to complete a couple of outlaps before they get to do so. But in the meantime, we can have a little bit, give you a little bit of an introduction to how this racetrack is run. So here's the track guide for the Hockenheim National A Circuit.
Hi guys, my name is Patricia Stalizzane and I'm a professional race car driver and also your co-commentator for this year's NGK NTK Esports Cup. We are currently here at Hockenheim, my home racetrack. Let me try and give you some tips on how to be fast on the circuit. Once again, we are starting on the last corner of the track to prepare for the straight. Because the first corner here at Hockenheim is quite fast, we are going to stay in 4th gear, give it a quick tap on the brake shortly after the 100-meter sign, fly over the sausage curb on the inside and take as much of the outside curb we can for the next straight, obviously staying within track limits. Then here we are braking at the 100-meter sign, shifting down to 2nd gear, turning the car around and going on full throttle as soon as we can. Preparing ourselves for this very good overtaking opportunity here at the Kurzanbindung, because the track can be longer. We are going to brake quickly after the 100-meter sign, shift down into 2nd gear for this double right-hander. Be careful, the car will come into a slight drift, you have to manage it, and prepare for this next corner where you can quickly accelerate because you have a huge runoff area, so you can take as much space as you can from the track and carry as much speed as you can for the next straight. We'll have this quick right-hander where there's a small kink in the white line of the track. That's your braking and also your turning point. You shift down to 3rd gear, carry as much speed as you can. For this next left one, we shift down to 2nd gear, have a late apex, so turn in quite late, because after we want to carry a lot of speed out of the corner again. Now 3rd gear, keep the gear, go on throttle and play with the throttle throughout the corner, but once again go on full as soon as you can for the straight. That was it. It was a quick lap. It's not quite long, but definitely fun. So yeah, I hope you guys gained some insights and I hope you guys will enjoy the racing on this amazing track.
Well, there we go. That was a little bit of a look around this Hockenheim National A circuit. Of course, as Randy mentioned, we don't get that full run down into the hairpin that may compromise a couple of the moves that people would want to usually do down into that hairpin. But I imagine, Patricia, that we'll still see quite a lot of lunges, quite a lot of moves to the insides down into that particular section.
Definitely. I think the Kurzanbindung, or like this, shortcut is quite difficult to drive actually, and it's still a braking point, so you can quite well like slide into the corner next to someone. I think there's not going to be much differences regarding overtaking in this case.
Well, we've got on-track action then. We've got just shy of 6 minutes here left in qualifying. And, well, with the qualifying format that we have here in this series, these guys have got themselves lone qualifying, which means they're all out there, all alone on circuit. And they have 4 flying laps, or rather 4 timed laps that they'll be able to put in. But the early running has Alexander Tieber, our championship leader at the moment, at the very top of the order, where he's used to being. Thomas Simon is about 0.2 of a second behind in these very early stages. But we've got probably about just over a quarter of the field yet to even set themselves a qualifying time here just yet. So there's still a lot of time and a lot of laps for this order to really be shaken up. Here's at number 29 of Patrick Thompson from Apex Racing Academy. That's sort of the feeder team to the wider Apex Racing UK, which is always at the very top level of competition here on iRacing. This is more of their development team, Patricia, where they get young and upcoming drivers to at least drive under their banner for a period of time.
Yeah, that's very nice that we have these young talents with us in the field. I think we've talked about this last time, that we have quite interesting personalities, I would say, with us, because we have some professional drivers, we have some good amateurs, I would say, and they all come together. At the end of the day, it's quite still, a similar level of racing, and they fight against each other. And I think it's interesting for them and also for us to watch as well, of course.
So Vince Peters across the line, goes provisional pole position. So that's the driver that's second place in the championship order at the moment, beating out first place in the championship, but immediately usurped by Patrick Thompson, who goes fastest of everyone by just about a tenth of a second. These drivers still have a good couple of laps in the bag to be able to try and chase some lap time here towards the very end of the session. So I'm not necessarily worrying for a couple of the drivers just yet, but once that timer ticks down closer to 0, then we might start getting a little bit concerned. Here's Michael Haflidsson then, number 81, who has been a fantastic part of this series so far, but let's see how he does here at the Hockenheimring. Top 10 start at the moment for Haflidsson in the AM Racing team number 81, but still plenty of time left in the session to be able to get a little bit higher. He's currently on his third timed lap of the 4 that he has, so we'll have another 2 opportunities to try and get himself further up the starting grid, just really maximizing the track limits there, coming out of the Mobile 1 curve and now in towards the Sachs curve. It's a fantastic on-camber left-hander that Patricia. You can really carry a lot of speed through there, more than you think sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. I think the last double right header is quite an interesting corner to balance the speed, because as soon as you go into quick, you have a side drift, sideways going car, and that's very hard to manage for one, and also it's slower. But then again, obviously, as soon as you lift off the throttle, you lose a lot of time because you lose it all the straight through, like down straight. However, talking about speed, I think this first corner is very famous for Hockenheim regarding track limits. I think, again, in the race, we'll have some disappearing cars who got their 3 penalties and are disqualified, because that is a very tricky corner and nobody will pay attention whether you were fighting for a position or not, because you only have those few track limits to spare, and once they're gone, they're gone. So I'm very curious to see how they're going to manage that as well, because that is the typical issue here at Hockenheim.
Yeah, of course, the stewards will be having a look at things, and we also have an instant limit, of course, 17 instant points. So you do have to be a little careful, even though they are, only 25-minute long races. So you would have thought, getting 17 instants in 25 minutes is an achievement that you don't want to have, but it can and does happen. Here's the championship leader, Alexander Tiber, who has a lap or 2 in hand. Yes, he does. Although this will actually end up being the completion of his final lap here, because he won't have the time to get back around and complete the final flying lap that he has, because this is a lone qualifying session. There's going to be no extension to the end of the session when the checkered flag comes out for people to complete their laps. So once that timer expires, that is basically it. No one can complete their laps. So Tiber might not be getting any higher than 3rd place in qualifying here at the moment. Here's Vince Peters, his best time, 1:38.791, and it's a 6:94 to beat in terms of Patrick Thompson's pole position time. Vince Peters heading out of the final corner now, drive to the line. Like I said, it's a 38.694 to beat in terms of pole position, and it's going to be quite far off the mark there for Vince Peters as he heads his way through and across the line. That will be his qualifying session done. He will not have time to come back around and get that next lap completed. Here's Juan Chilin, who's 5th place in the qualifying order at the moment. A 39 flat is his best time, and a 39.3 is not going to be an improvement. So drivers really struggling to get any faster times at the back end of this session at the moment. As we wind things down a little bit, it seems like most of everyone has actually completed all the attempts that they're able to do.
How many attempts are you allowed to have?
It's 4.
Oh, I thought they could jump out as often as they want, so I learned something new as well.
Yeah, so it's only 4 timed attempts, shall we say. But of course, time is expiring now, so even those drivers that are on laps right now, they will not be able to complete them. So checkered flag is out on the session. So we do have an official starting grid for race 1. It's Patrick Thompson taking pole position in the Apex Racing Academy number 29. Then it's Vince Peters, 2nd in the championship, 2nd on our starting grid. Then we've got Alexander Tiber, championship leader in 3rd place with Nicholas Snolder in P4. Juan Chilin in P5 with Thomas Simon lining up in that 6th place. Nazadati, who lines up in 7th place with John Ellen in 8th. Alessio Bender in P9 with Arthur Gustems in P10. Michael Haflerson is in 11th with Mario Velgut in P12. Then further back through the order, you have Mike Barber in P13 with Sarah Dove in 14th place. Harry Fox will start in 15th with Mergim Aliu in P16. Then you got Kagan Spark in P17 with Sophie Aronwen in P18. Then you've got Gary Lynn in 19th place with Simon Suzuko in P20. Marcus Hudson, Noah Hendricks, and Dario Dills will round out your 23 car starting grid here for race number 1. Let's have a look then as we get all of our drivers on the starting grid. And of course, we might end up, at least in this session, end up skipping that second one of those events there, because we'll have to see what happens up with race control. But it looks like we have everyone on getting themselves towards the starting grid here. You can see the overhead shot of all the cars just getting themselves ready and eagerly awaiting this race starts. But you can see the number 4. Oh, that's Alexander Tiber in that bright purple NGK Sparkplugs car. He's looking to try and work his way forwards here in this one, and we always see Tiber towards the top of the order in these races, so he's definitely not one that's going to be afraid to try and go for those moves to try and get to the top step of the podium. We're rolling away then, as we get ourselves all sorted behind the pace car for this little initial, basically quarter of a lap here, to get ourselves set for round number 4 of the NGK Sparkplugs NGK and NTK Sparkplugs Esports Cup. Yeah, I'm still using the old name of the series, believe it or not. But there we go, as we head our way through the Sachs curve then. Towards the very back end of the lap, Patrick Thompson pole position here for this one. Fantastic performance from the number 29 car, but can he hold on to it for the first of these 25-minute races, especially when he has quite a lot of very competent competition right behind him? Out the final corner then, we'll get this round number 4 of the NGK and NTK Esports Cup started. We're waiting for the green flag. It is displayed, and now we're charging on our way down towards the kink at turn number 1. Thompson's got away well here at the very front of the order. It's Tiber and Nolde who are the ones going side by side behind in through that very dangerous section of circuit. Tiber and Nolde still wheel to wheel here on the way down in towards turn number 2, as we got even 3 wide further behind them as well, which is an interesting situation to negotiate through that first sector. We've got Alessandro Benja and Wanji Lin a little bit further behind, going to wheel. There's Nazandati also involved in that further back through the field, but it seems like everyone's been able to get away at least relatively well here in the initial stages of this race, although I think I've given it the curse of the commentator Tamos Simon and others involved in an early incident there on this first lap.
Well, luckily we have a very wide track, so they did manage to the first 3 corners. However, then on the Kurzanbindung, as I told you, that's the tricky one. So you do get into a slide quite fast, and obviously I think that's what happened. You just need a little bit of help of your colleagues, and then there you are.
Here we go then, but still things quite hot at the very front of the field. Vince Peters trying to apply some pressure to the rear end of Patrick Thompson, but getting no results here at the moment. It's a 4-car breakaway at the very front of the field in these early stages. After that initial incident that we saw a brief piece of, we'll be lining up a replay for you very, very shortly of that one. But coming towards the end of the first lap then, it is Thompson that leads from Peters, from Tiber, from Nolde. That's the situation at the very front of the field. You can see the cars all strung out towards the bottom of the field as you get that nice little shot down the pit straight there. But now down in towards turn number 2, your first real overtaking opportunity at this track, but no one decided to go for it because I would hazard the guess the drivers don't like the compromised line you would have to take through here, which will then ruin your run down the straight.
Yeah, I do think that once again we're going to have a nice showdown between our leading pack. So the first top 4 obviously are quite in a similar pace, and once again I think they're going to keep it down to the end of the race, or however maybe not. Now they go 3 and next to each other into the Kurzanbindung. Obviously it still is the place to overtake on this track.
Yeah, obviously, but no shake-ups in the front of the order, at least on that particular lap. I think drivers wanting to settle themselves into a rhythm here at the moment. There's really no point in going for these early moves unless you feel confident that you can pull away on the other side of things. Here's the incident that we saw at the very early stages. That is involving the number 17 car. Excuse me, not the number 17 car. It was. Let's see what the 117 was. That Gary Lynn potentially? No, he's still in the race in P number 14 at the moment. But either way, that's an example of one of the incidents that we saw on the opening lap of things here at the Hockenheimring. But with the guys at the very front still in their 4-car packs here, 4-car pack, excuse me, at the moment, they're trying to put a little bit of a gap over Alessio Bender, who would really, in an ideal world, prefer to try and keep up with these guys, keep himself in contention for the podium spots. Having a little bit of a look further back through the field, involving a battle with Harry Fox. Rather, not a battle with Harry Fox. Harry Fox in a little bit of no man's land. He has a battle directly ahead of him between Aaron Wen and Spark, though, for P15 and 16.
Well, I assume it was Tomas Simon who was involved in that crash, because obviously he's the only car out at the moment. And it's quite funny to see how lightweight those cars actually are, considering their speed. Like, they go 2 wheels up into the first corner, and also getting the car into the swing, how Tomas went out. It's just hard to find the balance again for such a, I would say, rather aggressive and tiny car.
Well, we saw some activity there at the very front of the field. Peter's having a little bit of a look on Thompson, but ending up not getting, well, at least too far alongside in that particular instance. But the one thing that Peters does have to worry about here is any potential moves from cars behind as well. Here's another little look at the chaos that happened on that first lap there as big spin towards the outside. That's not a fantastic position to be in, pointed in the wrong direction at the end of the, well, at the start of the first lap. But back to the live pictures then. You can see there's Alexander Tiber in that purple car. And, well, he's just in a pretty comfortable spot at the moment, all things considered. Tiber, I don't think he really has to be applying the pressure here at the moment. Of course, you know, most of these drivers are very secure inside their top 40, so the qualification for the final race is not necessarily a massive concern, as we see a replay of a bit of a tangle and a bit of confusion heading their way through the, I think that was the first corner, the kink at the start of the line.
Yeah, I think that was an unexpected slowdown for the guy behind. I don't think he did that on purpose. It just looked like he was going a bit quicker through the first corner than his teammate was. Yeah, that happens, but it's so quite unfortunate, obviously. But we have to remind ourselves that for the next race, that means they're going to start in pole position. So that's not going to be too bad for them either. And as you said, as long as you're not far behind, you're going to manage the points and just take the benefits for the next race.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's a little bit of a battle going on a little bit further back in this situation. You got the number, well, you got the Harry Fox and Sophie Aaron when all involved in this. Harry Fox gaining 2 positions in pretty quick succession here. Fox towards the outside. And a little bit of a tangle, a little bit of a door-to-door contact coming through that particular sequence of corners. Suzuko also trying to get involved in this situation as well. It all gets a little bit too close for comfort in and amongst this entire grouping of cars a little bit further down the field. But it seems like everyone is just about able to survive that 1-2 tires into the dirt, though, as we try to extend the track limits as much as possible, coming out the Mobile 1 curve there. But that is a pretty common occurrence at this racetrack, Patricia, when drivers are trying to extract so much out of the circuit that they may accidentally dip 2 tires into that gravel sometimes.
That's definitely true. Yeah, I've been there, done that. However, I think a big part of this race is also going to be managing the tires and just putting your head down and racing, because I think this track especially eats up the tires quite harshly, so you're gonna have to manage that quite well to the end of the race. And I think you can tell, obviously, there's a lot of fast corners. You push the car, and then when you have worse tires, then you feel it even more, because you have to find that fine line of how far you can go, even more to the end of the race. So I think that's going to be another topic for today as well.
John Allen and Nazadati had a little bit of a moment together there, and looks like Birgam Aliu is looking to try and capitalize on this one. Adati having to go on the defensive in towards the heavy braking zone here and opens up that inside, washes out towards the outside of the circuit as well. That will allow another car to pop down his inside. That's Gary Lynn, who now commits to the outside here and is, well, not able to gain that position. Adati is able to hold on to it, but that's the issue sometimes when you have a trainer cars trying to get through on you all at once. You step a foot out of line, and all of a sudden you're not only losing one position, you're losing two, maybe even three.
Absolutely, especially because these corners are so tight packed. You always like miss the entry for the next corner as soon as you go out of line for the first one. So it really pulls through the whole track as soon as you step out of line, as you said one time.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's the battle towards the very front of the field. Vince Peters and Alexander Tiber going wheel to wheel, coming out of the final corner there. Still level on the way down towards the pit straight here. Are they going to, is one of them going to back out for the kink, or are they both going to commit to it? They both commit to it. You can see that Nicholas Nolder is looking to pick up the pieces on the both of them. Peters has lost out massively in this one, and Nolder is looking for both positions on into the braking zone, in towards turn number 2 now. Battle of the late breakers. Tiber makes it up underneath him. A bit of a switchback move here coming through the first sector. Tiber trapped on the outside here. This battle will continue down towards the cut through. Peters is actually gaining ground on these guys once again. So after being beaten by that initial battle, he's back into the thick of things. As Tiber on the inside here is he able to hold on to this one. He should just about. And now Nolder, thanks to being trapped on the outside there, now he falls back into the battle with Peters as he tries to recover from that initial fracas between all of them. Oh, careful there through Mercedes as these guys are giving us a fantastic show, but it's going to be Peters that ends up recovering a position there in and amongst all of that. Wow, that got really spicy really quickly.
I was about to say that I love how Alexander Thiel is giving us the best racing show once again. Like, there's no boring race with this guy. But yeah, he held his place over like 4 or 5 corners, and he did that quite smart and strategic.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, you can see we're running on board with Nicholas Nolder now, who briefly held P3 there, but Vince Peters able to come straight back at him. And this whole situation has allowed Thompson just to really stretch his legs at the front of the field a little bit. 1.4 seconds between himself and second place here at the moment. That's what battling sometimes does, unfortunately. Allows the drivers ahead of you to try and get away. Peters with a poor run coming through the kink here. Nolder might have an opportunity on the way down in towards turn 2. Peters defending the inside line, making sure there's no opening down into there. Nolder trying to sneak up underneath through the exit of the corner, try and get towards the outside, which will then give the inside for the cut through, which seems to be the best place to be at the moment, but that opening has not resulted in anything for Nolder here at the moment. He's just going to tuck in, sit inside the slipstream, see if he can get it done into the braking zone, but no, he's just going to sit behind and make sure that he lives to fight another day, I presume. But yeah, this front pack has really come alive now, isn't it?
Definitely. But I think it's really hard on this track for the Frontier to manage these first 3 corners with the longer straights. Even with these cars, you have a lot of slipstream, as you can tell. So to the end of the track, it's fine because it's tight corners and nobody's going to jump right next to you. But in the first 3 corners, you can really have 50, 100 meters and still have someone, you know, jump next to you on the braking point. So that's quite hard to manage for the guys in the front.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, we are getting towards the halfway point in this race now. We still got this battle for P3 raging on. Nolder really applying a lot of pressure to the back bumper of Vince Peters at the moment. There is absolutely nothing between the two of them as they head their way outside, out of the final corner. And charge down that straight once again. The two ahead of them have really pulled out a decent gap now. So a split has definitely happened in this front pack, as you can see Peters just going very, very wide indeed. That is not ideal. Won't get a slowdown penalty as a result of that, but does have to be careful because, I mean, if he does that a few too many times, then stewards might take a dim view of it, and he'll also be collecting instant points for that as well.
Yeah, that's a dangerous game to play. We saw it on the last lap or the pre-last lap. People being disqualified. That's a pity if you fight your soul out for the whole race and then just get kicked out on the last lap.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, that's just the situation that the drivers have to deal with. There's a decent battle pack sort of developing behind these guys as well. Alessio Bender, we've got Wan Chilin, we've got Michael Hafliderson, also involved in that little 3-car battle going on behind these guys as well. So there's multiple little flashpoints where things can definitely develop into a more of an aggressive battle by the time the 12 minutes of this race has completed. So plenty of things to look at here in terms of shuffling around before the end of this race. Of course, we've had a couple of incidents which has caused a bit of drama with some of the drivers. You know, a couple of drivers out of the event now. So we had Thomas Simon who went out in the very early stages, and then more recently we've had Kagan Spark and Marcus Hudson decide to bring their cars down on towards the pit lane and call it quits, at least for this first race. But we do still have 20 cars still running in this one, and well, has to guess majority of them in the same picture on the way down in towards turn number 1 there.
Absolutely. As always, we have a very tight pack. And yeah, we're halfway down the race, and I think you can tell that the guys are, you know, using more and more the outside of the tracks. As I told you, I think it's getting harder and harder to manage the tires and push the car to its limits. And now you'll be able to tell who really, I think, practiced the most on this car and did long stints before this race, because I think that's quite difficult. It's already hard to manage these cars, but now it's really what it's coming out for.
Yeah, one thing we actually haven't talked about is the track conditions at the moment, because they are quite interesting. So we have 43 degrees Celsius as the track temperature, which is quite hot. So it does mean the tires are going to not quite like those conditions. It's going to be a bit slippery, a bit slidey out there. As a result, I think these guys are going to be very thankful that this race is not an hour long and it's only 25 minutes.
Absolutely. That's exactly what I saw, because I was thinking you could really tell how they're building off lap for lap, and I thought it's just the normal tire you use, but obviously, as you said, it also has to do with the conditions. So that's the toughest conditions I think you can have for tire management.
Yeah, it is really tough. At least especially for a European circuit. I know in iRacing there's Interlagos in Brazil is the worst track for track temperatures, because it's quite common actually to see over 50 degrees Celsius on the track temperatures there, which is crazy. And I had the pleasure of commentating an endurance race there once, where it was where usually back in the day, you know, it would be double stinting the tires on GT3, triple stinting potentially. No one was double and triple stinting tires at that race. They were changing it every single stop. So yeah, that's just sometimes how you'd have to adapt to conditions. But the thing is, we don't have pit stops in these races, so the tires you put on the start, they're the tires that you're going to have at the very end of the race, and you do have to take somewhat good care of them to make sure you have that performance at the end. But you can see now Hafliderson really trying to lean on some of that tire performance to try and get past Wan Chilin at the moment, but not too successful. There's a look to the inside, a big look to the inside, and a big lunge, and the door wide open for Hafliderson to be able to make that move. Wheel to wheel coming off the corner. They will lean on each other a little bit, not wanting to give each other room on the way down in towards Mercedes, as Hafliderson swings it around the outside. Will give him the inside for this next corner here, which will end up with securing the position for him. That was a little bit sketchy, Patricia, as those guys basically leaned on each other's doors, not wanting to move for either person.
Yeah, that was very lenient of Lin, wasn't it? Like, he was being nice. He saw him coming, and he was like, "Okay, before I drive into you, I'm just gonna let you pass." That's what it looked like. But I just wanted to add on what you said. I think that's quite one of the biggest benefits of iRacing. You can really make up the craziest circumstances, whatever you wish for, and everyone has to obviously work under the same circumstances. So as you said, nobody can pit. Everybody has to work with these tires, and it's just another thing that you can really work on your driver skills. Just individually. So it's again more about performance and less about, as it is in real life, about cars and mechanical stuff, etc., etc. It's really just you have to work with what you get, and even if it's crazy circumstances like super hot temperatures and crazy tire build off.
There'll be, thankfully, with the new update that iRacing's bringing to the service, there might be a chance for more crazy situations, because we've got rain coming. in the
Yeah, I
next
can't wait for
update,
that.
so.
That's amazing. If that's going to be like at least a little bit realistic, that's going to be just very, very great. Because
Yeah,
honestly, that's the best part about sim racing. You can just take any circumstances, any car, and drive from anywhere. Those are the benefits of sim racing.
It really, really is. And I'm definitely looking forward to it as well, as we saw for a brief moment there, Alexander Tiber looking to try and get past Thompson. So that gap of, what, 1.4 seconds or whatever it was at the end of that,
It's
battle
gone.
for the final, podium positions, that's all gobbled up here at the moment. So Tiber's really been able to lock onto the back of that orange 29's car, excuse me, at the very front of the field, and might be able to make a fight with it in these final 7 minutes of the race. But Tiber gets a little bit of a slide on there through the Sachs curve, which is not ideal, especially with like we've already mentioned, with the track conditions. It's going to take some time for those tires to cool down after any sort of slide and any sort of energy that you put into them. And you can see now, as a result, immediately he drops off the back by about half a second already.
I see another showdown coming on the last laps. It's been proven over the last races. That's what they do here. That's what the guys like. They wait for the last lap, so they don't have a lot of risks of a counter. so they wait for the last lap to overtake and take the lead. I see that coming with Tiber. If he can keep his head down to the end, he might manage. Let's see if he can.
Of course, I mean, I wouldn't put it past Tiber to really go all out here in the final 6 minutes, even though it may not necessarily be too necessary, if you know what I mean. He's a racing driver at the end of the day. I mean, it doesn't matter. Real life driver, sim driver, it doesn't matter. We they all want to win. They don't just want to sit there and say, okay, second place is fine for me. That's never a situation. They just want to. They see that car ahead and they want to pass it. So it does set us up for a pretty exciting final 6 minutes here. I'm seeing a name drop down the order there. That's Mike Barber, who dropped a couple of positions on our timing tower there. Hopefully everything's okay with him. He's still out there on circuit and circulating, although Gustems and Ellen got past him very, very quickly indeed.
Well, maybe we can see a replay of that. Either he was simply overtaken and got pushed back. As you said, you don't lose a single position here. You lose a couple immediately. Or he actually just went offline.
Oh, here we go. Battle for the race lead once again. Not usually a place where you see a lot of side-by-side action here, but Tiber on the outside for the final 2 corners here, and they're going to lean each other out on towards the curb. And here comes Vince Peters as well, who will make it a 3-car fight for the race lead. Nolder is on the outside, waiting in the wings here as well to try and get himself involved. Tom's on the inside here through the King. Peters looking for a way through as well, gets completely blocked by that orange car, and now on the way down in towards the braking zone for turn 2. Tiber having to try and commit around the outside. Here comes Nolder to make it a 4-car offensive as there's a bit of contact between the front 2. Thompson's able to hold on to it though, as we see Tiber go to the race lead. Here comes Nolder. He's already got the position over Vince Peters, and now he's trying to get it over Thompson as well. So Thompson trying to fight for his life here on the way down in towards that little cut through. Nolder, big commitment around the outside. Thompson, maybe a little bit more nervous there. I think he could have probably committed a little bit more, but now he's going to have the outside in towards Mercedes here, and Nolder probably will end up picking up this position, and he does. So Tiber running away at the front of the field now. Nolder up into 2nd place, and we're on board with Peters at the moment, who wants to get a podium.
It's truly fascinating how these guys manage to stand their outside position for several corners. It's really fascinating because that is not as easy as it looks. Quite the admirable skill to have to keep these corners from the outside and still manage to overtake after 5 corners.
Yeah, it's great to see, and with the amount of contact they've been making with each other as well, I'm very surprised that they're all still able to keep going, because there's a lot of door leaning, a lot of bumper bashing here at the moment. But we can see with the onboards here at the moment with Vince Peters, of course, he tried to get involved in that fight. He was trying his very best to find, some way through on the 3 cars that were going all side by side ahead of him, and actually he might have an opportunity now on the inside. in towards turn number 2. Nolde will come across and give him a little bit of slipstream on the way down in towards the braking zone here. Peters was still a bit of an overlap into the braking zone. He draws himself alongside now through this first sector. Tiber is loving seeing all of this in his mirrors at the moment because he knows he doesn't have to worry too much about being in the race lead. It's basically a battle for second place and back now. Here's the onboard with Nolde looking back at Thompson, who's looking to try and recover. Thompson, of course, he led the vast majority of this race, and now he's having to try and fight for P2 and 3 as Nolde goes a little bit wide. That's not exactly ideal. Thompson not in a position to capitalize on it though.
Yeah, it's really amazing how they keep it fair, though. You know, the front pack, they're fighting all the time the last 10 minutes, and they've kept it quite fair so far. That's nice.
Yeah, it is, but we have very limited time left in this race to go now, so not a lot of time for these guys to try and settle their differences from P2 and back here in towards that Sachs curve. They're on camber, left-hander. It's fantastic corner to drive. Not so much for the overtaking though, as we see Vince Peters again with the onboard with those 2 cars directly ahead of him in towards the final 2 corners now. As what we're doing in terms of lap times here, 1:40. So we have actually 2 laps to go still as we head our way across the line now. So maybe a little bit more time than these drivers were expecting here, as the pace of the race has been relatively quick indeed. Through the first corner they come. There's the look back from Nicholas Nolde here, as you know, you can really feel the tension here at the moment.
Possibly. Thiba is really playing the strategic game. You see how he's going out of slipstream for the other guys in the back, because he knows that they're going to gain more slipstream than him pulling off. Even though they're quite far away, he still pulls out of slipstream.
Yeah, indeed, and well, everything closes up still in this battle for the final podium positions. Peter's able to get himself alongside as he's going to require a bit of commitment on the brakes in towards this corner. Now he does slide himself down and in, tries to find some traction on the inside of the corner. Actually does quite a good job at it. The job's not complete though, as he now has to defend on the outside in through Mercedes. Peters, you'll have the inside once again here as well. Try and capitalize on this. Try and get that position over Patrick Thompson, and he does. There might be a response here from Thompson in the immediate future. He does angle himself towards the inside here through a particularly dangerous part of the circuit, but doesn't commit to it whatsoever. 30 seconds left on the clock. I think they're going to go one more here. It was very close coming towards the line that last time by. So we might have another lap of this, although they have spread themselves out just a little bit. It might just be that Thompson tries to get the reply here on the final lap, but it seems like he took a lot out of the tyres, at least in the early stages, to be able to secure a gap for the race lead, but it's really punishing him now.
So we're having another lap, are we not? Yeah, last lap of the race.
Yep,
all right.
There we go. Final lap of things.
Let's see if we're gonna have a counter back from Thompson. I see it coming somehow in our favorite overtaking corners.
Yeah, potentially. It might just happen, you know, as they all bunch up once again. And in fact, Nolde's not safe here either in P2. So, you know, this might still all change here on the final lap. Do they go for the brave move down the inside at the cut through? Do they go for a brave move anywhere else? Peter's going to go for it. He's going to send it down the inside of Nolde here. And it looks like, oh, he's just about being able to get that position done. Thompson looking to try and get involved in this as well, trying to find a way through Nolde. Nolde drives it hard in towards Mercedes. Thompson's able to try and get back underneath, but it's not the ideal positioning for this right-hander. So the situation's still not done. Peters in second place, Nolde third, Thompson in fourth, but that still isn't guaranteed to be the order coming across the line here. There's a battle further back. Haflidsson and Wanty Lin also having a bit of a disagreement through the fast right-hander up onto the curb. The both of them go, and in towards the Sachs curve as well. It's still undecided in amongst those guys, as we see at the further towards the front of the field in that smaller box there. Thompson and Nolde wheel to wheel, door to door, up towards the line here, and it looks like Thompson's going to be able to capitalize on that. 2 tires into the gravel, but at the front, it's Alexander Tiber that takes the race win here this evening in the NGK NTK Esports Cup. We have another race to go, of course, but My word, that was an exciting one towards the end there. Vince Peters across the line ahead of Thompson, ahead of Nolde. Wow, all of a sudden on that final lap, there were multiple places with multiple battles to look, and wow,
Absolutely.
That was crazy.
It's becoming a rule. I feel like I see it coming every time, but it's like it's not even a surprise anymore. Even the battle for Lin was quite crazy. How he kept his place throughout the infield of the last 4 corners. That was quite interesting to see as well. But yeah, we saw once again the last 2 laps, someone coming from P4 to P2 and the other way around. So yeah, couldn't be any better.
Here we go then. Here's your unofficial results from race 1. We've got Alexander Tiber by 1.1 seconds over Vince Peters, then Patrick Thompson, then Nicholas Nolde. That's the top 4 that were giving us a whole bunch of action throughout that event. Then you got Alessio Bender, who finishes in 5th with Michael Hafliderson getting one over Wan Chi-Lin at the very end there for 6th place. Then you've got Arthur Gustams in P8. Then you got Mario Velgut P9, and John Ellen will finish in 10th place. And then you've got Mike Barber in P11, Nazadati in P12, Mergem Alio in P13, Gary Lynn 14th with Harry Fox in 15th place. Sarah Dove finishes in 16th with Sophie Aronwen in P17. Then you got Simon Suzuko in P18. Then Noah Hendricks and Dario Dills will round out your top 20. And then you've got cars that unfortunately had to retire from this event due to incidents. You've got Marcus Hudson, Kagan Spark, and Tamos Simon. That's going to be at the very bottom of the official finishing results here. But due to the fact that we head in towards race number 2 now, and we do have a full reverse grid set up, so that's going to be very interesting indeed. Here's the starting grid then. It's basically the reverse of what I just told you. It's Tamil Simon on pole position with Kagan Spark in P2. Hudson, Dills, Hendricks and Suzuka will line up inside of the top 6 cars. Then Aaron Wen, Dove, Fox, Lin, Aliu and Adati rounding out the top 12. And then further back through the field, you have Barber, Ellen, Velgut, Gustams, Lin, and Hafliderson towards the bottom of the order. Then we've got Bender, Nolde, Thompson, Peters, and Tiber right at the very back of the field. It's going to be very interesting, Patricia, to see how those guys work their way through this field, because it's going to be a very tough ask. Yes, we do not have as many cars on circuit as we had earlier on in the season. However, it's still no mean feat to try and get from P23 up into E1.
Absolutely, and I think once again we have no time to lose. The guys didn't even have time to catch a breath, and we're back. I think we're looking forward to another very, very intense start. So I'm looking forward to the first lap as always, and hopefully they keep it fair as they did in the first race.
Yep, here we go then. Another 25 minutes event. Of course, full reverse grid based off of race number 1 here. It means that those drivers actually retired from the first event actually start at the very front for this one. What an opportunity for those drivers. Thomas Simon in particular in pole position. In fact, Thomas Simon will not take the starts here. So it's not Thomas Simon on pole position. It is Kagan Spark who will lead them to the start of this particular race, with Hudson on the front row as well. But the second race of the evening is underway here in the NGK NTK Esports Cup here at the Hockenheimring for race meeting number 4, and it is Kagan Spark that leads them in towards the exit of turn number 1. Big instant behind though, big slide. For who's that? It's Michael Hafliderson, and it's been an incident involving, I believe, Nicholas Nolde in this one as well, in and amongst those high flyers that start towards the back of the field. As there's a big thumbs down there, I think, from Hafliderson as the reaction to that. A little bit more chaos on the live pictures as well. Cars spun around, cars 3 wide. I saw a brief part of 4 wide there as well. As well, this is a little bit chaotic, a little bit crazy, but hopefully we have no more drivers have issues.
Oh,
I shouldn't have said anything, as we see cars spun around in the wrong direction. That was let's see, Dario Dills. We had Sarah Dove in the wrong direction as well. That's Dills still spun in the wrong direction, waiting for the cars to come through and try and get past him. Meanwhile, at the very, well, not the very front of the field, but in the front half of the field, you have a lot of action still going on, a lot of spins happening, a little bit of spins of contact as well. It's been a very scrappy start to this second race here. Here's Sophie Aronwen going a little bit wide on through the exit there. Allows Harry Fox to get to her outside, but not able to get any sort of overlap whatsoever. But my word, I had a hard time keeping track of what was going on there with all the incidents that we had. And this battle continues for P2 between Aaron Wen and Fox. Fox around the outside. There's a bit of contact between the two of them. Fox wasn't clear to cut down the inside there, and almost wraps himself across the nose of the 28. So Sophie Aaron Wen is able to hold on to that P2 with Megan Aliou now in third.
I love that. I'm not even going to try to keep track. You're doing great.
Oh, there's a big
Jesus.
one. Oh, there's a very, very big one indeed. Oh, my word. That was Mario Velgut, I believe. Yeah, it was the driver that had the major part of the contact there. But, of course, there were a couple of other drivers involved in that as well. No Hendrickson. Suzuko, yeah, Dills is out. Flidderson's on the pit lane. Hudson's on the pit lane as well. Gustem's out of the event. A lot of casualties here in the very early stages of race number 2. Battle
That is the first timer for us. We have all our top drivers out or in the back of the field or in the pit lane.
Yeah,
This is new.
Yeah, Tiva's on the pit lane as well. Oh, this has not gone so well for those drivers.
Chaotic. That was chaotic.
Incredibly chaotic indeed, as we see Sophie Aaron Wen falling back through the field a little bit. That's just a situation, you know, that happens sometimes when you're the beneficiary of a reverse grid. You know, you do tend to have a lot of challenges head your way, well, try and get through on you, and so it's a natural situation. All you can do here is really hold on, although Sophie Aaron Wen almost went for the move there on Harry Fox, which would have been interesting to see through the Sachs curve, at least. Meanwhile, battles further back, John Ellen and Gary Lynn going wheel to wheel. There's a battle between Nazadati and Noor Hendricks ahead of them as well, which might be changing. Nope, in fact, they just go single file, but Ellen trapped on the outside here for the final turn, is able to get clear and slot himself back in, and in fact challenge Lynn ahead in towards turn 1, which is always a risky move. Basically a single line through there, and I'm always surprised to see drivers actually attempt that move.
We have a very interesting lineup right now in the front, do we not? Like, we have Aaron Wen keeping all the guys in stock right there. She did really well for the first couple laps being in P2, and even now she's managing quite well. Suzuko still in the front, holding up quite well so far. I'm very curious to see whether this is going to stay that way. And also currently, I want to talk to you once again, my unprofessional opinion about who's going to be the driver of the day. Currently, I'm favorizing Lynn, because even though the pace is not quite peak, he's still doing very, very well regarding fighting and making up positions from the start.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Oh, more battles on screen. Gary Lynn versus Noor Hendricks. I mean, you have 2x2. It's basically like some form of biblical story here, as we see John Ellen get ahead of Vince Peters and Patrick Thompson there. Here's the onboard with John Ellen, who's trying to track down those cars ahead. Battle's going on behind him as well. 2 tires into the gravel is not exactly ideal coming out of there, but like we've already discussed, it's pretty common for that to happen. But yeah, still drivers trying to sort themselves out, and this is just what happens when you have a reverse grid. Everyone is out of position, so all the positions are for the taking.
Yeah, we just saw some double tandem drifting. I think that's what it was.
Yeah, I think so. It's obviously, you know, intriguing to see in terms of entertainment value. It's not going to do anything for the tires though, because we still got 4 track tab. Oh, big moment indeed for Noor Hendricks, who has a almost catastrophic incident coming in towards turn number 1 there, but somehow they're able to hold it. They didn't hit anything on the way. Wow.
Well, I think talking about tires, this race is going to be much worse than the previous one. Oh, there we go.
I mean, there we go.
There we go, Erwin.
Yeah, I was going to say, Noor Hendricks, after surviving that big off through turn number 1, gets unceremoniously spun through towards turn 2. And then, of course, like you mentioned, Aaron Wen also had a little bit of an issue there as well. Let's have a look at exactly what happened with Noor Hendricks, I believe. No, that was the early stages of the race. That was Hafliderson, how he went. out of the event in the early stages, and gave us that big old thumbs down on the webcam. I do love seeing the drivers' reactions like that, because they're not shielded by a helmet and a race suit. You can actually, that's the good thing about sim racing, is that you can actually see their expressions and potentially the stress or the anger and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked about this. I love how serious they are when they're driving, and as soon as they're out, all the emotions come out, overflowing. So yeah, definitely always a sight for sore eyes when you see them finally, sharing their feelings after the race.
Yeah, absolutely. But Harry Fox up into P2 now, so he's slowly but steadily been working his way through the field here as Fox. He's had a very good race so far, and now is disposed of Mergamalio in terms of the positions here. Is trying to pull away, trying to catch up what is a 4.3 second gap up to Kagan Spark, who has had a pretty relaxing time, all things considered. It's been a very good race. All of the chaos has happened behind him, and actually continues to happen behind him, as we see Patrick Thompson looking to try and scythe his way through this field at the moment, but again is running into a roadblock here and there. Oh, gets a little bit too comfort. Oh, a little bit too close to Barber there. That could have been a catastrophic incident, and a very high speed one indeed, towards the end of this straight here. But no, they're all able to keep it pointed in the right direction. The car trapped on the outside. That's one Jilin in the number 30 in the cyan, the turquoise colored car, trapped on the outside there. Meanwhile, here's more replays as we see. That's what happened to Sarah Dove on the way in towards the hairpin for the first time.
Yeah, I think we have only one Frontier from the previous race currently managing it to go back to the top, which is Peters, right? Yeah, all the rest of the drivers that are as well in the championship as much as in the first race, they're all out or in the pit or in the back of the race. Yeah,
because Nolda has not had a fantastic time. Tiba's out of the race, so I mean, it can't go much worse than that.
This is the chance for all the other drivers to make up points for the championship, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It is a fantastic chance, and for those drivers that potentially might be new to this race, be coming in midway through the season, because you have to qualify for each and every race. There's no set roster for the entire season, so you do have to qualify for every race. But for those drivers that may be new, this is fantastic opportunity to try and get some points on the board and try and qualify inside that top 40. That's what happened to Customs. Big amount of contact with a car behind as well. We're taking this little bit of a break in the race to show exactly all the incidents that happened in the very early stages of things, as we see Mike Barber and Patrick Thompson once again get a little bit too close for comfort as they look for the next braking zone in towards that cut through now. Thompson gonna drag it in a little bit, get himself just about ahead. It's so difficult on the outside through that particular section. It feels like you're having to try and fight for at least maintain some form of overlap, so then you can get the inside for Mercedes. But even that doesn't always happen.
Absolutely, it's quite tough. That's why I said it looks much easier than it actually is, because to carry the speed at the outside of the track where there's not so much grip is not that easy actually. And then you get pushed out as well, obviously. So it's a tough task.
Battle rages on though. We're on board with Mike Barber, who potentially might be looking for a move in towards the Sachs curve. Gonna brake a little bit later, try and get a little bit of an overlap here. He does have to be careful because he has Alessio Bender right behind him, applying a decent amount of pressure as well. So you don't want to be too eager in these sorts of situations, lest you risk going from the offensive to the defensive. But with less than 15 minutes now left in this race, still plenty of time to progress on forwards here as Barber takes a deep breath, just reassesses the situation. You sometimes do have to do that, on the straights here, because you have that little bit of time just to check, okay, where are my opponents in terms of their relative timings? Am I still in a good position of the race? Have a little bit of a think about how you want to approach, any of these overtakes or any of your strategy a little bit later on. Those breaks are sometimes quite welcome, where you can just full throttle it and just think about other things for 5 seconds.
Oh yeah, but these breaks are quite tiny. Like, I would be absolutely overwhelmed focusing just on keeping it on track and seeing my mirrors and just keeping it going. That's already hard enough, I think.
Here we go. Down the inside though goes Bender. Barber having to try and defend on the outside here. Car spun in the middle of the circuit ahead. They both have to try to avoid, which they do. That was Suzuko spun in the middle of the circuit. Sketchy situation from everyone involved there. You never want to see a car stranded in the middle of the circuit when you're going side by side with someone else. But Bender looks like he's got, well, almost clear coming out of the corner there, but not quite. And Barber will actually gain a little bit of ground on the way down through the right-hander here. Barber trying to cut back in, but doesn't expect Gary Lynn to also be there to try and capitalize on this one as well. Side by side in towards the banked turn of the Sachs curve then, as Lynn on the outside trying to maintain this overlap here. If he does, at this point, then he has the inside for both the penultimate corner and the final corner, but a little bit too spooked about that. Decides to tap the brakes a little bit and let Barber go. And in fact, I think he might even have a slowdown penalty here, considering how slow he's going. Not sure, I would imagine, what for, but Wanty Lin has also been able to head his way through.
Yeah, it really looked like it, and he went to the inside and let the guy pass on the outside. I think he was definitely slow down for something. Unfortunate.
That is so sketchy with the car, in the middle of the circuit. Nothing Suzuka could have done. In fact, he did the best that he really could have in that situation. Just tried to bring that car to a stop and not be a moving block rather than it's easier to avoid a stationary object than it is a moving one, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I was having DTM flashbacks. I'm not sure if you saw this massive crash between Schumacher and Olsen right on that spot. That was crazy. It was a similar situation, so that's really sketchy, as you said.
Yeah, well, art imitates life, I suppose, in this situation. As there's we can see those instances on repeat, but we see here with John Ellen. Excuse me, he's currently P5 at the moment, which is a fantastic place to be, considering he started P4. John Ellen's, he started P14 in this particular race, so he's been able to make a great amount of progress indeed and get inside this top 5 position. Remember, he finished in P10 in the first race, so P5 in this race, and still with less than 12 minutes to go is quite good going, and looks like he has a decent amount of pace here compared to, well, at least able to keep up with Vince Peters at the moment.
Absolutely, yeah, it looks quite well. That's what I was about to say. Like I said, I think tire management, big topic here, even though if Vince Peters would theoretically have the better pace, if you didn't over push your tires at the beginning of the race right now, you'll benefit from that in the long term to the end of the race as well. So let's see how long he can keep it up and maybe do the trail move, as we say, and just follow him onto the next opponents in front.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just having a look at the lap times at the moment. So it was a 39.5 from Peters that last time by. It was 39.8 from Ellen. It doesn't gain them over Adati ahead, but it gains them time over the actual top 3 here at the moment. So both Adati, Peters, Ellen are all gaining time over the top 3 here at the moment, at least if that last lap is anything to go by. So that's a very interesting situation there. Of course, Aliu and Fox are still involved in their close run thing for P2, which might end up slowing them down as they try to attack and defend each other. But if you're the top 3 here, you're not safe really, especially considering what the cars behind are gaining anything from 3 to 0.6 of a second a lap on you.
Absolutely, and we don't have that much of a gap actually between them. Like P2 to P4, obviously right now even in a fight, and then we just have a second between them, and with 3, 4, 5 tenths each lap, they still have plenty of time to make some moves here.
Yeah, because the last lap from Kagan Spark, who's your race leader, by the way, was a 140 flat. So everyone else is in the 139s. So we have to wait and see whether that was just a dodgy lap from Spark or whether or not that was the actual pace. And I would hazard the guess it is the latter, considering he hasn't done a lap time in the 139s at any point. Actually, say a lie, he has just done a lap inside the 139s there, and he did one a little bit earlier on in the race as well. But yeah, still not really going to make him too safe. I think time might just be on his side though, because even though we have 10 minutes left, it's still not that many laps. So I think that the 3-second buffer that he has is going to end up being very, very useful indeed, as Aliu ends up losing a position to Adati there.
Especially he's benefiting from these fights that are happening behind him. You know, if the guys were just quicker and pushing forward, that would maybe be scary for him. But since they're fighting for P2, P3 right now, I think that gives him a bit of a bumper of not being, you know, followed up that quickly.
Yeah, a battle further back as well for P14. So this is Sophie Aronwen, who was a beneficiary of the reverse grid, but unfortunately, after getting swamped a little bit, having bits of mistakes and bits of contact here and there, has been put back into this position. Nolde, of course, he's had a similarly troubled race as he tries to go around the outside of Sophie here in towards the one curve, which is not really a place that you can make a move around the outside at. So he'll duck back in line. Sarah Dove coming in from behind, though. She's going to look to, well, she's going to actually wait for now and wait for these drivers ahead to settle their differences before she makes an impact, potentially. Nolde to the inside, in towards the penultimate corner here. I have to wonder how much damage that Nolde's actually dealing with at the moment, because he was involved in an incident a little bit earlier on, and ever since then hasn't really been on the pace with a lot of these other drivers here. And in fact, you can see him losing ground on the way down in towards turn number 1 here. So I think that car is definitely hurting, and it's a bit of a struggle for him at the moment.
Possibly, yeah, I can imagine. That's one of the things, sadly, you cannot really see in a sim race, like how badly damaged the car is. He might look fine from the outside, but his steering wheel might be looking a whole complete different direction than it should. So we won't know until after the race.
Yeah, so yeah, you can see it pulls out towards driver's left-hand side, actually able to keep up in this instance, and bit of contact between the two of them on the way down in towards the braking zone. Nolde attempting to go the long way around here in this battle for P14. Let's see how successful it is. Have to maintain that overlap to get the inside for this left-hander at Mercedes, and is able to sling one down the inside there and get that position done. So Nolde up into P14. Of course, he would have been hoping for a bit more, and in fact, the right turn just really doesn't work out there for Nolde. I'm not sure exactly what happened there. Maybe that's a symptom of some of the damage that he's been dealing with, where maybe left turns are fine, but right turns, that was a bit of a massive amount of oversteer. Sorry, understeer.
It looks like it. You can really see his front cooler pretty bumped up. I think it is some damage in the front of his car. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see how he is through these final 2 corners here, whether or not that was just a mistake or a symptom of the damage. It seems a little bit better through here. But, in that entire process, he did end up losing the position again to Aronwen. So this one might be a bit more of an extended and protracted battle for P14 out there on circuit. A big move over the curb there for Nolde. You got to be careful with that inside curb, because it is pretty aggressive, and I've seen incidents resulting from hitting that inside curb too much and losing control of the car.
I think we can soon start slowly getting back to the front. As you see, this 3-second buffer is only 1.5 seconds left. We have 4 minutes to go. I feel like we see Keegan actually not keeping up his pace as the others do. So maybe we'll have once again another last lap showdown.
Yeah, that's one thing to look forward to. Nolde again looking at the outsides through the little cut through, but it's not resulting in any passes whatsoever for him. So it must be a very frustrating situation to be in when you have the pace under normal conditions, but due to the damage of the car, it's not allowing you to push as hard and as quickly as you would perhaps want. We've got that green car of Sarah Dove also just sort of waiting in behind as well. I have to wonder how long she's going to wait before she actually makes a move here, because it seems obvious that Nolde is really, really struggling with damage to the car now, and it might be the situation that is going to hold a Dove back.
Of course, you can even see him having struggles to stay in the slipstream. Even with the slipstream, he's slower on the straight because probably his axis is bent or something, and it's just braking on the straight for him. Or yeah, it's a tough fight to have during the race.
Meanwhile, back towards further up the order, things are closing up and have closed up quite a considerable margin. We've got basically a 5-car train for P2 here at the moment, which when you consider that we only have 4.5 minutes left, that can be quite a recipe for some action brewing. And in fact, it does happen on the way down into the braking zone this time around. Vince Peters down the inside of Aliu is able to get that position done. Ellen looking to try and get himself involved in this one as well. But yeah, it's great to see these guys all so close together. And even further down the order, things also looking to try and get a little bit more action-packed as well. So we might have a similarly chaotic end to this race as we had in the previous race as well. So that's definitely one to look forward to. But you are absolutely right, Patricia, that Spark has not been able to keep the pace of the rest of the race at all. I mean, he did 140.1 that last time by, and some of the fast drivers in this race at the moment doing 139.5s, 139.6s, so that's like half a second, a lap faster, and it's going to be a big struggle in these final couple of laps for Spark to hold on to this, I'm afraid, because Harry Fox is really chasing him down.
Well, it wouldn't be an NTK Esports Cup race if it wasn't for the last lap showdown. I think it's a proven rule right now, so yeah, let's see if it's going to be P5 to P1 once again in the last lap.
What might save Spark here is a move down the inside by Adati, who really overcommits to it, but I mean, I would have said that initially, but somehow he's been able to make that one work. He does lose a little bit of speed here on the way down the straights, which will put him under threat into the braking zone, not only by Harry Fox, by Vince Peters, as we're going to go 3 wide down into here, as Peters looks to try and capitalize on the slow cars. Just about getting themselves through there relatively okay. No bits of contact between each other whatsoever. Now into the braking zone for Mercedes as well. Peters on the outside, trying to maintain that overlap, but not going to be successful in doing so. He's going to still look to the inside there, and actually the door will open up through the exit of the corner for him to try and get himself up into that second place. A bit of contact on the way down in towards the next right-hander, but Peters is able to get clear. Adati now having to try and defend from Aliu in the number 33, who's been sliding back throughout this race, but now this is his time to try and press on forward. A lunge further back from John Ellen on Harry Fox as well. Everyone wants to get in each other's faces in these final couple of laps.
Are we in for the last lap, Connery? I feel like we are.
Ooh, it's going to be very close. Spark is just coming out of the final corner now, and we are, I don't know, 139, comes across the line 135. I would say this is the final lap, but I know, and the white flag is out there, so this is indeed the final lap here. I will say that with some reservations, because sometimes we get an extra lap when we don't expect it, but if you're the drivers right now, you have to treat it like this is the final lap.
Yeah, it looks like it. They're pushing like it's the final lap, so...
Oh! Contact as we saw Fox go for the lunge on Aliu, but resulting in a bit of a shunt. They're both able to keep going. Aliu might still be under threat here by the time the next braking zone arrives, so Fox is going to position himself to drive his left-hand side, which will be the outside for this right-hander. It's a very tricky position to be in. Maybe he's looking for the up and under instead, and in fact that is what he's looking for. Try and get the drive off, try and get an advantage into Mercedes, but maybe not as much of an advantage as he would have hoped for. Another, differing, set of lines taken by our drivers there, as they all concertina are up, coming towards the latter part of that sector. Now it's only a couple of corners to go now before this race is done. We'll get official word of that, of course. Fox around the outside at the Mobile 1 curve. Oh, he's going to get his nose chopped off. Coming towards the outside of the corner, into the braking zone for the Sachs curve as well, as Aliu will be able to hold on, but Fox gets tagged from behind. Thompson has to stop to try and get through on that one, and all of a sudden, Bender and Barber pick up a couple of positions as a result. Drama at the end of this one. Kagan Spark, despite the pace disadvantage, does hold on for a race win here in the second race of the evening. Kagan Spark across the line to take the win in the NGK NTK Esports Cup, and just chaos behind as well. Peters and Adati, the podium finishers, and everyone else just thankful that that's over.
Oh boy, that was painful. That was painful. Ouch. To spin on the last lap in the pre-last corner, and Having to. I think he thought that he's gonna manage to break down and like go back on throttle and manage to finish the race. However, he got overtaken by 4 other drivers. That's a shame.
Yeah, that is a big shame. You don't want instance like that to happen on the final lap, and unfortunately, that is what happens to Harry Fox as Ellen went for a gap that was always closing, I believe. Of course, the stewards may take a different view or may take the same view. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, what a crazy end to not only this race but both races. There's the incident through the Sats curve that ruined Harry Fox's race, and I have to say, ruined Patrick Thompson's race as well, as he had to come to a complete stop to make sure he didn't make contact, and all of a sudden they've both lost 4 positions as a result of that. That is a big shame, especially for Thompson. But you see the unofficial race results here. Kagan Spark takes the race win, and he'll be very happy about that. It was very close, by the way, at the end. If we did go that extra lap, you know, I would have said that Peters probably wins this race, but you know, thankfully it ended a little bit early for Spark's sake, so he does take the race win. Then Peters, then Adati round out your podium positions. Then you got Mirgam Aliu in P4 with John Ellen P5, Alessio Bender, Mike Barber, Wansi Lin, Gary Lin, and Patrick Thompson will round out the top 10 in the finishing order. Then you got Harry Fox, Michael Hafliderson, Simon Suzuko, Sarah Dove, Sophie Aronwen. We've got Marcus Hudson, Nor Hendricks, Dario Dills, Nicholas Nolder, and Alexander Tiber rounding out the top 20. Quite a few retirements in this one, unfortunately. Mario Velgut and Arthur Gustams will be classified P21 and P22. So we can take a little bit of a breather here at the moment, Patricia, because we had 2 of the very final minutes of both of those races. Just absolute chaos and, you know, a very entertaining viewing. But of course, you know, they're going to be winners and losers out of that one. Of course, Spark in this particular race, you know, he knew he didn't have the pace. I mean, we can be honest about that. Didn't have the pace to be running that sort of position. However, got a benefit from the reverse grid, was able to keep himself out of trouble. Didn't make any mistakes whatsoever. No mistakes. Like, just, you know, it's consistent lap times. You know, they're on the slower side, yes, but consistent lap times, keeping out of trouble. And it nets you a race win because you had that 4 or 5 second buffer after the initial laps to work with. That, you know, that's a textbook way of doing things. You know, it just goes to show you don't need to be the fastest driver on any given lap to win races. You just need to be consistent, and that's what's happened.
Absolutely, and that's what we talked about before. Like, you see a guy with no team just winning a race here against professional racing drivers, but it's exactly that. You have to use your resources, and if you get the possibility to drive in the front, you have to make the best of it, and he did exactly that. He made a great performance. He didn't make any mistakes. A lot of people, obviously, as I said, had to fight with the car to the end of the race. He managed it amazingly, and even under pressure with Peters right in the back, 2 tenths behind him on the last lap, he kept cool and he drove it to the end. So amazing job to Kagan.
Yeah, it is. Wasn't it an incredible drive? I got worried for him in the last couple of laps. I saw that time just ticking down and down and down. I was like, oh, is he gonna get caught? But I think what saved him was that hopeful lunge into turn 2 from Adati on Peters. You know, towards the end of that race, that slowed them down just enough. More than almost 2 tenths of a second, which he won by, and I think that was really the saving grace for Spark in that one. But I do want to talk about the end of the race there as well, in terms of, you know, the Harry Fox and you know, that instant that happened through the Sats curve. I gotta say, you know, you do have to, you know, go for hopeful moves on the final lap, but it's, you know, it's really at your own risk, right? And you know, Fox really didn't have anything to do with that. He was the one defending. He was the one that was, you know, ahead, and it was a, you know, tiny little gap, but not enough to go for. And unfortunately, he's the one pointed in the wrong direction, losing a ton of spots.
No, I absolutely agree. It was a shame. Like, it was really painful to watch because he did a great job and he was fighting to the end. And it's, you know, a pity to lose that all on last corners. But that's racing once again. Obviously, that's how it is. That's how it is in real life. That's how it is in every race. And still, yeah, we had all of it in one race, did we not? We had a privateer on pole position. We had a fight back from pretty much P-last from Peters. We had a spectacular last lap, and once again, we had it all in one race.
Yeah, absolutely. And, well, we'll see if there's any penalty heading the way of John Ellen at the end of this race. I think the stewards will have their work cut out for all of the incidents that we've seen throughout the 2 races here today. So they're going to have a very busy evening.
The Discord channel is on fire as well, by the way. My phone is beeping all the time. The drivers, some of them are not so happy right now, but it's understandable. It was quite chaotic.
Yeah, it happens like that sometimes, unfortunately, but that's just the situation, and the stewards will have to sort things out. So before we go, though, we'll have a little bit of a reminder of the season. So we've got this race meeting number 4 completely and done with for the 16th of February, and then we head in towards the 1st of March for Rudskogen. Which is what we'll be heading to for the next event, and I'm going to be very interested to see how these drivers deal with that, because obviously it's not necessarily a track that's gone to that often here on the iRacing side of things. Of course, it's the racetrack up in Norway. We don't get many races up in Norway, shall we say? But it's it's going to be a very interesting event, because again, it's not a circuit that a lot of drivers will be very used to, because it's not usually on that many simulators, to be honest.
Absolutely, but I love that track. I had to drive it obviously for the track guide. It was my first time as well, and I must say it's really one of the best tracks on this calendar, simply from a driving perspective. And I'm actually happy to have gotten to know it, because I'm definitely going to drive on it a couple more times again. So I think the drivers will enjoy it. And again, a new experience for them and a new challenge as well, because it's not a track that you got a lot of practice in. And once again, the circumstances everyone has to work with, then it will be even harder for them to, continue being in the front for the guys that are usually in the front here.
Yeah, absolutely. And, well, I think that will be around about all that we have time for here this evening. This has been race meeting number 4 of the NGK and NTK Esports Cup. We've had some fantastic races here at the Hockenheimring. We hope that we join you in a couple of weeks' time on the 1st of March for Rudskogen, as we head to Norway for the next race meeting to try and decide which 40 drivers will join us for the very final round of competition. But until then, I've been Conor Maddock. I've been joined by Patricia Stalizzane, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time, guys.